A little tired? Did you get much sleep? Who got 8 hours of sleep last night? Proud of you guys. This might be a little odd for a PreSonusphere. I mean, when I first was asked to teach what I typically teach at the church, I says, really? I says, I thought there was like, secular, worldly things going on. You really want me to talk to church stuff? He goes, oh yeah, we have a lot of church guys. And he was right, a lot of you here. And I'm glad to see all you here. How many of you are sound guys or girls? Okay. And do we have any worship leaders here? How many do both sound and worship simultaneously? Okay.
With an iPad, you could do it, Doug.
Well, I'm in a portable church, so I do that. I'm leading, and I got a studio live next to me, so I'm playing and running sound. So I know how that works. So I'm going to start off maybe a little bit different from other sessions. I'm going to start off like we're in church. And I want to kind of gather us together a little bit and give us some scripture to think about before we start getting into the gear and all that stuff, if you don't mind, if you bear with me. And there's a scripture that you all know, and I want you to realize how important and critical your role is to achieving this scripture. The scripture is simply faith comes by hearing. I'm all about production and aesthetics, making sure there's no distractions in the service. But more importantly than that, if you don't hear the word clearly, with clarity and intelligibility, then nobody's heart gets changed and nobody's lives are transformed. So you guys are the critical gatekeeper of the conduit that allows the word of God to enter the hearts and minds and souls of the people there. I don't know if you ever thought of your role as being that critical, but it's probably the most critical position in the church. If you don't take it seriously, don't do it. Do something else. Because I need people who really want to be responsible for making sure that everybody who comes in the doors of that church are going to walk away with hearing the word of God. And how much time are you putting into it? I'm going to ask you another question. You raised your hand because you're running sound. How many are running sound about an hour a week? 2 hours? 3? Anybody more than 3? So you must be some full-timers, some staffers. How many of you are volunteers? Most all of you. So let's take the 2 to 3 hour guy. That's 100 hours to 150 hours a year. How many hours does it take to be an expert at something? 10,000. So if you're doing an hour a week, that's 50 hours a year. Doing 2, it's 100. When we've been there 10,000 hours. It's going to take you 100 years to get to 10,000 hours. So I guess what I'm going to try to tell you today in the short hour and a half that we have, we're not going to be able to solve all of your audio problems. PreSonus has done a lot in solving a lot of them for you already, and we'll get into some of those. But the rest of it's up to you. I can tell you about gear till you're blue in the face. But until you start developing your own talents and skills outside of the church, you're never going to get good at this. And what can you do at home when you're not in the church with all the gear? You can develop your ears. Your ears are the key to you being good at what you're doing. How do you do that? Ear training, critical listening. Listen to music, lots of it. Some churches have great tech guys who might do IT for a living. I was in one church, the mix was so bad that I went up to the guy and said, man, how long have you been mixing? 15 years. Really? You must love music. I hate music. And then why do you do it? Because I'm the most technical guy in the church. You might be the most technical, but you're the least musical. I didn't say that. I appreciate his service, but that's somebody who really should be doing technical things but not mixing music. And one of the key qualifiers I look for when I'm raising up sound people is, are you musical or a musician? Because I can teach a musician how to mix more than I can teach a technical guy how to love music. Right? So listen to lots of it. I'll give you some resources if you email me. There's lots of things out there that you can learn at home. Turn the TV off a couple hours a day and listen. Critically listen to all kinds of music. John Mills back here, I don't care if it's a string ensemble or if it's a reggae band, he mixes it authentically because he knows how that music is supposed to sound. He doesn't mix a string bass, upright bass, like a Fender bass. If it's an acoustic piano, he doesn't make it sound like a Rhodes. You with me? So faith comes by hearing. Here's another thing that you can remember about how important sound is. This is from 1 Corinthians 14:7. It says, if even lifeless instruments such as the flute or the harp do not give distinct notes, how will anyone know what is played? And if the bugle gives an indistinct sound, who'll get ready for battle? So with yourselves, if with your tongue you utter speech that is not intelligible, how will anyone know what is said? For you'll be speaking into the air. Notice the bugle, indistinct notes. In the Old Testament, battle sites were chosen for their acoustic properties. You imagine a bugler blowing something, the army's going, was that a charge or a retreat? So the acoustic properties were very important for the army to know what to do, to get their directions from something. It should be no different than the church. We're building churches now that are aesthetically beautiful, but you can't hear anything in them. Glass and brick and beautiful to look at. And I always give the faith comes by hearing one to the video guy. We walk by faith, not by sight. Faith comes by hearing. So next time you're appropriating money for something, let's make sure that the audio gets a major chunk of it. I also want to talk about team building a little bit here, because I've been in churches that have state-of-the-art gear, but there's division in the ranks. Definitely some walls up between the techs and the worship platform. And I've been in little tiny churches that have nothing, but the team loves each other. They're one team, they're not two teams. They're there to serve each other. And that trust that comes from that kind of relationship comes over time. You can't build a relationship with anybody 10 minutes before a service. Are you taking the time to know the sound person? The sound person taking the time to know the team members on the platform? I know some churches say, hey, you back there, can you put up fader 3? They don't even know the guy's name. Likewise, Soundcheck thinks the worship leader is a diva. Maybe they are, but let's break it down. We're one body, one faith, one baptism, and we're here to serve each other. And if you get relationship happening, so many things can be accomplished, even if you don't have the right gear. You'll make it work. Trust, a firm belief in the reliability, ability, or truth or strength of someone or something. A synonym for trust is confidence, faith, belief, credit. George MacDonald had a great quote. He said, to be trusted is a greater compliment than to be loved. So when the worship leader trusts the sound guy, he knows he has his back. He doesn't have to worry about what it sounds like out in front. They have a relationship. So many things can be accomplished with that. So spend time building relationships. Have coffee with your team. Do devotionals together. Record your rehearsals and services and listen to them together. See how you can improve. I'm going to read this scripture and then we'll go into it. Philippians 2:1-11. So if there is any encouragement in Christ, any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from rivalry or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves, and let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others. Have this in mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped. So if Jesus can't count equality with God something to be grasped, how do we think that we're more important than anybody else in the church? Serve. Serve. Remember who you're here for, who you're serving. Let's close in prayer, and then we'll start on the gear stuff. I give you thanks, Father, for all you are and all that you do. And I thank you for these who are here giving their lives for you, for your glory, for building up the church, using their skills and talents to amplify and magnify your name in our church and our community. And I ask you to bless them and give them the skills, give them the time to perfect them. Give them hearts that want to serve even greater than they are serving now. Give them thick skins, because they'll need it as sound people. Help them not to take offense. And I ask you right now, Father, if there's anybody here that's holding offense against somebody, some unforgiveness, I pray that they just let it go today and go back to their churches with a clean slate. I give you thanks for this day, the privilege of being here. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Feel a little gathered now? A little closer together? So what we're going to talk about is some basic issues you might be facing in your church. Some things PreSonus has really done to address the problems. And if your Studio Live users are ready, you already know what a lot of those things are. If you're volunteer in a church and you've never really known how to EQ or use a compressor, to me, one of the greatest features on the PreSonus Studio Live is the fact that they have presets. And I don't know how many of you are using presets, but if you're not, it's a great starting point. It's a great jumping off point. So we have a band up here, and maybe we'll demonstrate some of that in a little bit. But I take a kid who's never mixed before, and by showing him how to load a preset into a console, in about 5 minutes, presets loaded with appropriate instruments per channel, he can now look at those things and see the differences in EQ settings and start tweaking and twiddling from there. I don't want knob twiddlers. I want people who have ears here to hear what they want to hear and then go to the knob that helps them get where their head is wanting to go. If you watched John yesterday in the Soundcheck, as he was going through the Soundcheck and making cuts, that's a really important thing. Cuts are always better than boost. Sometimes he'll boost a little bit here and there, but he's always cutting first, I would believe. And John, you want to chime in any time to talk about that. Before I get into EQ, the new 32 AI has a much steeper high-pass filter. You can do so much with a high-pass filter. And maybe we can demonstrate some things with some guitar players, and just by EQing, yeah, there you go. Thank you, John. That was great. It's a little too much. My recommendation is start with the high pass and roll off things that are, especially the variable one, roll out things that aren't common to that instrument. And then go to your high EQ if you have to and use that as a low pass, as in a shelf. Carve out the high and the low parts of that instrument. You have to know where the instruments are, where the vocal ranges are. That's where we have to take time studying frequency, identifying frequency. So high pass is a great thing to start with. And then presets, we'll show you some EQ settings. So what do we want to start with? A guitar? And maybe demonstrate some cuts, some boost. And we can do, I don't know, we can go around the instruments, Johnny. What do you want to do?
Sure. You want to treat it like a sound check?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Hey, guys. You guys need some sound to do this, don't we? Let me grab your vocal real quick so we can talk back and forth.
All right, great. Check. Vocal.
I think that could use a little high pass.
1, 2, check. 2,
Great.
check.
Good. You hear
2.
some in the wedges?
A little bit, tiny
Okay,
bit.
Need some more?
A little bit more. And we're fine.
Great. Everybody else okay hearing him? Just so we can talk. I did it yesterday in yesterday's sound check, but one thing I'm doing is I'm not yelling at him to the stage. So if you have a microphone, grab it and use it from the board, because if not, then I have to talk like this.
Hey, man, do you hear okay? And I'm like, what?
He's like, what? But also notice I'm yelling, even though I'm being nice, in my opinion. It feels like I'm yelling at him, and then all of a sudden you have this disconnect, for lack of a better word. I'm sure you've had other words you'd like to use for guys like me yelling at you.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Anyway, I'll tell you what, let's just start with the kick drum, and we'll pass it around whoever needs it. So if you want to go ahead and kick for me, buddy. First thing I'm going to do is set a level. Excuse me. And then I'll listen to it. Sounds like I still got leftovers from last night. Yeah, we'll just run with that. That sounds pretty good. Okay, anybody want kick? Yeah, I'll tell you what, let me grab everything first. That way I've got an EQ on everything, and then we'll go fast through and just pass it all around. I'll show you how we do that. So go ahead on snare, please. Okay, hi-hat.
Hey, Johnny, can you
Yeah.
explain what you're doing when you're doing that? You notice he's boosting, and then he's...
Yeah, you know what? Is VSL running on the computer? Okay. Will it run at the same time? We're going to try and get it up on the computer. Oh, there, he's got it. Okay, so we just need to launch VSL's all. Dexter's our recording engineer, but there we go. This will let us see what I'm doing on the console a little better. Okay, and let's just grab an EQ. Okay, so let's go back to that snare drum real quick, and I'll turn the EQ off and flatten it, and we'll start over. Yeah, can we fade some of those lights, guys? I don't know if you have a control up there.
Anybody got a BB gun?
So the concept I'm going here, guys, is I explained it yesterday in one of my classes, but if you didn't hear that, when my daughter was real young and she's playing with Play-Doh, right, she'd grab a ball of Play-Doh and she'd get it and she'd roll it into a little ball, and then she'd take it, she'd make a worm, you know. Remember, make the little worm, and she stuck it on top, and she's like, Dad, look. And I'm like, it looks like an Angry Birds bomb. No, it looks like, you know, and you hate being the dad guessing, but she knows exactly what it is, right? So she's like, no, it's an apple. And I'm like, oh, it's purple. I didn't get it. If it was red with brown. And so then I start realizing, you know, you're advanced more and you've seen more than she has at that time, and she's being more artistic than we allow ourselves to be sometimes. But the fun part is I'm talking to an artist later about that at one point, and he's like, well, you know what we do as a professional artist, we don't push the clay into what we want it to be. We take the clay away and reveal what's inside. So he's like, if I was going to make an apple, I would take a cube of clay and I would start cutting pieces away of it and start pulling things off of it. And I don't manipulate the clay. I remove the pieces that are unnecessary to reveal the apple that's inside the clay. Anybody hear a spiritual thing going? No, anyway. But that's the same thing, honestly, I'm doing with instruments. When he hits his snare drum, because no matter how great he tunes it, I've put a microphone on it, and it's not going to sound exactly the same. I would first tweak the microphone and get it where I want it. But then I'm listening going, okay, there's something I don't like about it. What don't I like? So you'll see what I'm going to do here is I'm going to boost some EQ. Doug said never boost. We're never going to boost until we've cut. But first, I'm going to boost it, and I'm going to sweep it back and forth and find that frequency that just sounds worse. There's really not a whole lot of tech involved in what I'm doing. It doesn't sound good to me. It doesn't sound like a snare drum, or it sounds honky, or it sounds, you know.
What I also love about John is
Excuse
he's
me.
not setting it by any rule. He might know certain ranges to start with, but he's not just like in the manual. Set it here and put the compressor here. It doesn't work. He's using his ear. He's in a different room. He's with a different player, different instruments.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't look. I look at a knob. I'll grab the mid-range knob if I think it's mid-range, but I'm not actually looking at numbers or anything like that. If you, I can tell you because I've done it for a long time. But if you say, hey, what should I cut on a tom? I want you to listen to what you should cut on a tom, not tell you that it's, you know, between 400 and 700. Because if I tell you that, then you're going to use that knowledge to do it as opposed to just starting to play. I liken it a lot to, You've heard like the piano player who can sit down in front of the sheet of music and just like play it lick for lick. Take the music away and they can't play. The same person or another person can play it note for note exactly the same, but doesn't have to read it. It sounds better for some reason.
Right.
Because they're feeling it. And that's the way I think sound, we treat it too technical sometimes, because what's happening here is technical. Just like when he's strumming a guitar chord, the technical part of it is him learning to strum correctly and fret a G correctly, or whatever you're fretting right now, I can't see it. Fret a G. Anyway. Yeah, well, I don't know, it doesn't matter to me, see? I don't know, I don't care. But when I hear him play something, my job is to translate musically what he's doing, not technically. I have to technically know this instrument to know how to translate it. But anyway, you
So
get
it's a
the
combination of art and science. Basically.
Ah, good way to put it, Doug. Yeah. Yes. So let's go ahead and hit the snare. And if you'll put VSL up on the screen. Just get rid of this. I'll turn it up a little louder so you can hear it good, but excuse me. Okay. So what I don't like in there is a little bit of that mid-range. You can keep going. I'll just over top you. Whoops. Okay, and if you'll notice right up here in the corner, I'll do this a bunch. See this little, I can't do it with my left hand. That guy right there, that's when I hit the on-off button. See it going on and off? So I'm gonna let you hear it without, that's what it sounds like without the EQ engaged that I just did, and then I'll kick it in and let you hear the difference. So go ahead again. Okay, you hear the difference? All I did, Willow, was find that piece that just sounded bad as I was sweeping through there, right? And it sounds more like a snare, and then a key piece of what we're doing here that you'll catch later as we add more instruments is we're carving space for things. If we let all that mid-range stuff in there that was in there, the snare didn't sound bad without it, but it does sound better with it, correct? So we have more room for other things later, and we start getting into electrics and keyboards and things like that. Obviously, it'll make more sense. So I'm going to go fairly fast so we don't waste a lot of time on this, and we'll jump through the lines, but just watch what I'm doing there, okay? Okay, so let's go hi-hat. Okay, and on off, keep going. Okay, tom number one. Okay, the first thing I do, that's a high tom, and it's got a lot of low end in it. So the first thing I'm going to do is go after the high pass filter on it, just to get some of that out of it. Go ahead. Okay, a little too far, probably. All right, hear it. Now I'm going to turn it off. Back on. Hear the difference? Without even touching the mid-range on the tom, I've already cleaned up a lot of that, and especially it probably could use a little tuning. We're not taking some time to do that now, but that boom, instead of gating it, I'm going to try and get that note out, because honestly, it's a high tom. I don't need it to rock my socks off, and I want to have somewhere to go with that floor tom. So if I made that one that big and bassy right now, by the time I get to the floor tom to make it have some impact, it would literally be plastering us against the back of the wall, which isn't necessarily bad. But for not offending Sister Mildred in the front row, no offense to you, sir, down there. Okay, so let's listen to some mid-range on that tom real quick. Go ahead, bud. Those are not in. Let me put that back. Okay, on. Okay. Close enough for now. Go ahead to number 2. Checking my gain. Will you scratch that mic for me? Sounds like just scratch on the microphone. Try the third one. Yep, okay, I got those backwards here. But I don't, Blaine, thank you. He labeled it correctly. I'm reading it incorrectly. Yep. They're not in the order I'm used to, so I'm not used to looking like that. Okay. My good assistant here, Blaine, sound checked for me this morning and checked, and he wrote them in the correct order. I'm just not obeying his text. Go ahead on tom 2. Okay, tom 3. That sounds more like tom 3. Okay, let's give me 1, 2, 3, please. Okay, thank you. What I did there at the very end by doing 1, 2, 3 was just balancing the gain a little bit more so that all of them sounded apparently the same loud. That's a technical word, the same loud.
Can I just say something too about drums in your church?
Yeah.
There's not a good microphone that's going to make a bad drum sound good. So
Agreed.
some drum heads haven't been changed since the Civil War. So learn how to change a drum head. Learn how to tune it, because sometimes your drummer doesn't know how to do that. So you might have to do it.
Yep.
And try to tune them so they sound musical. Carl Albrecht tunes them to fourths or fifths, so you can actually play "Here Comes the Bride" on his drums. And you don't think it makes a difference, but instead of indiscriminate sounds, they'll actually sound more musical and they'll fit in, unless you're playing flat fives on every song. So, all right, so we'll move on. And
Grab the overheads real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you got a question here, Doug?
Yeah, there's a great app found in the Android called Drum Tech.
the drum tech,
Tech app.
how much is it?
It's like $1.99.
Oh, well, I'll buy it.
It helps tune your drums to frequency.
Okay, cool. The drum app, the drum tech app. All right,
Cool.
overheads. Let me say one thing before the overheads too, Johnny. Some
Yeah.
of you are using 2 overheads in your churches. How many are using 2 overheads in your churches? How many are you running? Keep your hands up. How many of you have stereo PA?
Interesting. The opposite people.
How many are recording in stereo with 2 overheads? So if you don't have stereo PA and you're not recording in stereo, 1 mic would do the job here.
Way better.
Yeah,
Less mics is always better than more mics.
that is true.
Okay? All right, go ahead, John.
You want to prove the point? We could switch to just 1.
We could if you want to, but
For time's sake,
it's up
let's
to
just
you.
move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what? Yeah, let's go to just 1. Steve, center me up 1 right over top of his snare and strike the other one. I'd like to prove the point. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
No, here's the thing.
You have 32 channels and you want to fill up, go for it. But
Well, if I'm going to choose in small situations where I don't have a lot of money, which is 90% of our churches, because people don't understand why we need to spend a lot of money to make the technical better, you do not need 11 microphones on an 11-piece drum kit. I'm going to prove it to you right here. When we get done with this little check, I'm going to use kick and an overhead, and that's going to be it.
And by the way, if you've got a heavy mic on a drum set, a film sandbag, or a brick,
Or
it's
anything.
just nice to keep it from tipping over on the drummer in the middle of the service.
The other thing too, I don't want to rant on shields, but I hate them.
Hate them.
And if you're especially using shields on a drum set, use less
My
microphones.
sound's over. I can't tell. My sound over
A
here.
Yep.
lot less.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead, bud.
Towards you. I'm running out of room.
I got a great electric drum story.
what's that? Was he saying?
He said, what about electric drums
"Oh
in
yeah,
church?
if you can find a drummer who wants to play them." I mean,
That's it. That's all the photo I can get.
most of them look like Lego sets. That's the first problem. But they do have some really cool electronic kits now.
So-
Pearl makes one.
Yeah.
So
They've come a long way. They've honestly come a long way.
yeah. Yeah. Great. And that's how you make them sound good. Don't use
Yeah.
the mono out.
Do not use the mono. Do not give the drummer control of mixing them.
All right, man. Let's give him a hand here,
Yeah.
folks. Yeah.
Taking one for
Yeah.
the team. Yeah.
John, am I muted back here? I'm going to unplug this. John?
That's a 40-50 overhead, Steve?
yes.
yeah.
Am I
Yes.
muted on this? I'm going to unplug it.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Tap on the other one. I need to see which one you unplugged.
I just
don't know
wanted to
which
make
one it
that
was.
point. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so here's the thought with this. Oh, wait, let me tell my electronic drum story. So I'm working for an artist, Lincoln Brewster, and we show up at this church, and they've got a drum kit for us, but they've got their church's drum kit over here, and it's an electronic drum kit behind a sheet of plexiglass. And I just walk in, I'm doing my thing, but it's honestly like, it's that thing that's kind of like that fingernail on a chalkboard over here that you just kind of, what? And I keep looking at going, there's got to be a story with this.
Right.
Why? And I'm getting a little angry inside because it really irks me. If you're going to have electronic drums, the point is still to put them in the PA. So I'm thinking they've got the plastic shield up because the sound of the rubber pad is too loud for them. That's what I'm thinking. And so I'm going, and finally the tech guy comes up and I'm like, you got to tell me what's up with this. And he's like, oh, it's a psychoacoustic trick. And I'm like, it's a psychoacoustic trick? He goes, we had real drums. They were too loud. We put a shield up. They were still too loud.
Right.
We got electronic drums. They were too loud. So out of frustration, I put them over in the corner, out of the center of the room, put the plastic shield back in front of them just as a comic relief moment. And everybody said it sounded better. And he goes, the best part is I actually turned them up that Sunday. And so that is why I say that psychoacoustics have nothing to do with the giant textbook written on it,
Right.
and more to do with psychoacoustics.
Right.
Yeah.
They will exacerbate your problems too. And I was in a church where they had drums right in front of the vocal mics. On the
Yep.
back of it. Here's the 4 vocal mics. So they said, Doug, you know something about audio? We're getting drums in the vocal mics. I said, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yep.
So should we buy a shield? It says, no, I got a simpler solution for you to save you $2,000. What's that? Move the drums over there and move the vocal mics over there. He said, oh, that wouldn't look cool. I said, okay.
Yep.
So they spent $2,000, and guess what they still get in the vocal mics?
Drums.
Drums.
Yep.
Guess what else they get? Wedges bouncing off the shield
The plexiglass.
back into the microphones.
Back into the house. Yep. Honestly, a drum shield is the worst invention ever, in my opinion. All it does is reappropriate the sound. It's still there. It might not be quite as sharp, but it's still there. And the problem is if you are miking them and the shield is only 6 inches from the kick drum, it's actually tonally worse because that's about to get it good, the shield needs to be about 4 or 5 feet
Right.
away.
Yeah.
And then it's actually a gobo, so it's not affecting the sound of the drums. But the problem is when it's 4 or 5 feet away, it's doing absolutely nothing to turning the drums down, which is why people put it close. But then when it's close, it puts a second reflection back into the microphones, and now the microphones all sound like this.
Do you really think a 1/4-inch piece of plexi could stop the acoustic energy of an instrument that was designed for war?
That's a good point.
So from 5 miles away, I'm hearing the Army coming, and I'm scared. And you think this little thing is going to stop it? I'd spend $2,000 on drum lessons before I would spend it on plastic.
Hey, and let's not use that whole war thing in the argument for having drums, because that might be misinterpreted.
It's of the devil. Don't you know that? No, I'm kidding.
Anyway, all right, let's move on. We digress. We enjoy digressing. Go ahead and play the whole kit 1 second. What I do here, guys, is I don't use the overhead mic as a cymbal mic. I'm going to use it as a kit mic. So I'm not just going to immediately go for the high pass and take all of it out and make it
Right.
only cymbals. That microphone, as a overhead mic, or a cymbal mic, as many people prefer to call it, isn't just getting cymbals. 90% of the time when he's playing, it's boom, crack, boom, crack, boom, crack, boom, crack, boom, crack. So he hit that. So content-wise, that microphone hears more of the whole kit the entire time than it hears those cymbals. Now, it has to get the cymbals, but the point would be if it's going to be doing that and affecting the sound of my drums the entire time, why not use it to be the sound of my drums? So go ahead, bud. Okay, hold on one second. Scratch on it again, make sure I got the right one.
Scratch on the mic.
Scratch on it. Okay, I do. I just have it panned. That's why, because it was stereo before. See? Okay, go ahead again. You can put VSL back up. Coming back. Sorry. I want you to see it, so we'll get back here real quick. Okay, go ahead. Okay, hang on a second. All right, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to let him have his stage sound. I'm going to fade in the fader. Can you see my fader right there? So I get to cover up the sound of the drums on stage, and then I'm going to add the kick drum. Okay? So go ahead and play, bud. Okay. Hang on 1 second.
2 mics?
Yep, that's just 2 microphones. Now I'm going to go ahead and add the other mics to it. Go ahead and play again. Okay. Now, oops, we might need some gates, but we'll come back to that. So I pass it a little bit more. How about that for now? What I'm going to do is show you the snare and toms off and on. So play again for me. Okay. You hear the difference? Those close mics add a little bit of warmth, but we got a pretty dang good sound with just that overhead. Now, given that is like a $500 overhead.
No.
1,000.
Yeah.
So it's a really
But-
nice overhead.
But you could get
But-
a 40-40.
Right,
You
you
don't
get-
need a multi-pattern overhead.
Oh, that's the multi. Yeah, definitely not. You need, just
So-
need a good
good
cardioid condenser overhead mic.
Right. Don't use a 57, okay?
No. You cannot. That will not do that trick.
Yes, just
So-
because you can buy 10 and get 3 free doesn't mean that's what you use everywhere.
So here's my thought right now. I really, the toms, without spending more time on Sunday when we're out of time already, You and I, let's work on this tomorrow afternoon on Monday. Let's come in and we'll tune the drums a little better because they're a little too deep. Some of them are resonating wrong. But honestly, when I turned off the tom mics that were the close ones, I don't have all that low ringing. But I still think from that overhead, I had a good sound of the toms. So I'm just going to run without the tom mics for now.
Or you know what else you could have done, John? You could have recorded it on capture and come
Yep.
back in yourself Tuesday night and
Sure.
worked on it.
Yep, could do that as well. So, okay, I'm pretty happy with the drums for now. Let's move on to bass. What you got for me, bass at a bass? What you got at a bass?
That's a cool bass. All together.
You're good. Keep going. He's just picking. Okay. Do we have VSL up again, please? And bass. Okay, I'm going to show you what I did there. You didn't see me sweeping it, but here's it with the EQ off. Go ahead and play, buddy. And here's on. I'll over-exemplify that a little bit. Here it's cleaning out some of that woofy stuff, and I feel it out in the walls almost when I turn it off. It's taking up a lot of space in the room. Tonally, it's still the same bass, but it feels like it got smaller and more on the stage, yes? Okay, cool. All right, moving on.
Hey, John, can I say one
Sir.
thing about
Yeah.
one thing about bass real quick?
Please.
You know, if you've got a bass player that's standing like this far from the front of his amp, and the amp is not tilted up, pointed toward his ears, it's pointed at his knees, and he keeps saying, I need more bass because I don't hear enough bass, tell him to move about 3 feet in front of his amp, because that bass wave takes a lot of space to propagate out into the room, and that's why like all the grandmas in the first row are going like, it's too much bass. And the bass guy keeps saying, turn it up, because he just needs to move in front of his amp a little bit further away.
I have a good story on that. I had a bass player who had one of those big 8x10s, you know, that's like shoulder height. There's 10-inch drivers in it, and it's right behind him, like probably about where the orange amplifier is there with the guy in the plaid shirt. And he's standing literally with his back up against it, and he's wanting more and more, and he keeps turning it up and turning it up. Yeah. And finally I went up on the stage, and I said, let me try something for you. And I took the amp, it was on wheels, and I took it and I rolled it literally off stage, just offside of, like, say, that black and white piece of art there, 15 feet away from him.
Yeah.
And I turned it down in half.
Right.
And he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, play. And he goes, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because a bass wave is not this long. A
Right.
bass wave
Wave is huge.
like the
I was at
low
a
stuff
church where the
that-
pastor's wife's wig got blown off.
Well, see?
50 feet away.
Yeah.
Poof.
Just
Right
blew it off?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Anyway, it honestly works, and it's very weird because you don't want to put your amp that far away and think it sounds louder, but it does. The reason you put it on the stage and you stand up against it is because all the old rock and roll videos you used to watch, that's what they did, So,
Some churches I've been into, they rely on the bass cabinet for the only low end they have in the church. Do yourself a favor and get a subwoofer or two.
yeah, I'd rather have control of it than let him drive how loud the whole service is. Electric players, that's you too. But that's another sermon.
That's another
Okay,
sermon,
let's
yeah.
try electric. How about center electric here? I think that's you down here. Okay, go ahead. on and off. Here we go. Okay. What do you notice about what I did with the EQ on it? Doesn't seem as abrasive. Great word. I love that. Electric guitar players, I love you, but you're abrasive. It's just who you are. It's your instrument. Here's the thing with it. That frequency I cut, I will give you this magic number. It's dead on 2K. 2 to 2.5K is the resonant frequency of your ear canal, which, interestingly enough, is why our amazing creator who made our ears made it resonant at that, because that is where all the diction, the syllables, everything is formed in that range, and it allows your ears to hear things at softer volumes. I'm pretty sure God really didn't intend on amplifying things this loud. This is us a little bit. We don't need this. I've had amazing worship services with an acoustic guitar and a vocal, and it does the same thing for him. We like this. He's cool with it. But our job as sound people is to not kill people, right? So that was a great opportunity there to hear. Your tone is a great tone, but it's got a lot of 2K going on. So if I want to turn the guitar up and have a fun rock sound, I can't have too much of that, because I do have to have enough of it on your voice. So I got rid of it. I carved away that clay, because later in the same piece of music, not the instrument, I'm going to have a vocal there. So I'm carving away a piece of the electric to make a room for the vocal. Does that make sense? Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. But that's, and I also, why did I run it that loud? I'm probably not going to run his guitar that loud. But if I want to get there, I do need to know what happens at that volume. And I take it to the point, I'll take a guitar up at a level where it feels uncomfortable with me with no EQ on it. And then I will try and scoop that 2K until it's like, good gosh. And then I'll take it out to where it's comfortable at that same level. Mm-hmm. And now I've made a very nice palette to build everything around. Mm-hmm. Because in the contemporary sound of an electric leading, it's drums, bass, and electric. Sorry, keyboard players, but you're pretty much ancillary in this type of music. You don't have one today, but you know, your pads, your B3s, your little bit of just soft tickly stuff, you're not going to hurt my ears. You're not going to be that loud. But if I had a piano leading, I might do the same thing to a piano, is carve a little bit out of there. Be careful with that on the piano, because it'll go away real quick.
Yeah.
But something?
No, I just know if you wanted to talk about how he's getting his sound now, or wait.
Let's wait.
Okay.
I think it'll be more fun in a minute.
All right.
Okay, so let's do next guitar. Yeah, go ahead. Are you going, or am I waiting for you? You waiting for me? Not seeing any input from you. Is that me?
Yeah, he hasn't had sound this whole morning.
Oh, we have not been friends of him yet.
No.
So, Jason, anybody up on
Where's our
stage know
guitar
where he's supposed
tech?
to be patched?
I'm a keyboard guy.
Little help up here.
Try that out.
No, that's on. That's standby. That's on. This is the right cable.
Justin Spence, you in here?
Is the cab on?
There we go.
Oh, wait, never mind, Justin. Okay, the first thing I'm listening to is how loud his volume is on stage, and I'm pretty much okay with that. Give me a big power chord. Let me see how loud it is. Uh-oh. There we go, there we go. Yeah, that's not killing me at all, so I'm going to go ahead and put some sound on top of that. Keep going, man. That's me muting, so that's something going on in your rig. I'm turned off. That's something happening with your amp there.
Wow.
Maybe it's the monitor send.
That was wild.
Okay, that would probably be me getting busted on the monitors. Just trying to dial ahead, trying to save time. See what happens when you do that. Okay, go ahead and put the mic back where it should be, if you would. Let's see what we get now. Let's see what we get now. Go ahead and play.
Is that the ribbon? It's the ribbon.
Are you going to play mostly that type of a sound, or are you going to do some big chord stuff too?
So the monitor was feeding
Uh-oh, gotcha. Okay, let's grab, while he's working on his cables real quick, let's grab a vocal.
Yep.
I think I already heard you a
Check,
little
check.
bit.
Oh. Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Two, check. Volume. Check, 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 check. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good up here.
Okay. Excuse me. Everybody hearing his vocal okay, for the most part? Drums, you're on wired ears, yes? Yep, do you hear his voice? Can't see you.
I'm on wired ears as well.
No? You don't hear him? You good with stage volume? Great. Okay. So as soon as we see his electric, we can probably try a little bit more.
Your tuner is on.
Anybody do a line check at their church before sound check? Anybody not know what a line check is? Who doesn't know what a line check is? That's you come in an hour before the sound check and make sure everything works. In fact, you should probably check the video and the lights too, because you're going to get blamed for that if it doesn't.
Okay, you're off now.
This is true.
And if the offering is bad that Sunday, you're going to get blamed for that too.
Hey, so the church that I was at for a while, the soundboard's here, and the lighting guy's right behind me on a little bit of a raised up platform. And this nice little old lady comes up to me, and she's like, "Hey, it's really
Go ahead,
warm
play.
in here today. Is there anything you
Yeah.
can?" I'm like, I don't control the air conditioning, but I can ask. And I'm like, okay, just for comedy's sake, I'm going to turn around and talk to Dave. Hey, Dave, can you radio and get some of the heat turned down for her? It's a little warm for her. And he reaches up to the lighting console and changes the look of the lights from like this kind of reddish look, I'm not kidding, I joke not, to a bluish look. And she goes, "Thank you, son. It feels better already."
All right. Johnny, what about that box we were going to build? The VU meter box?
Oh, yeah. A buddy
It
of
had
mine
two
actually
VU
had.
rails on it with
Yeah.
a big giant knob on it. So
Yeah.
you get Sister Lucy comes up and says, "It's too loud."
Yeah, there you go.
So you just go like this, and the lights come down, and she's very happy.
Yeah.
We could sell 1 million of those.
I had a buddy who actually had made one of those. I don't know if I've told you this, Doug. It said loudness, boominess, hertz, Hertz, but and literally all the knob did was make a little LED meter move up and down. There's no audio running through it, and he would give, like, it was right here where they could walk up. It's like, yeah, just go ahead and adjust it. Feel free. They tweak with it for a minute. Thank you. So I'll be selling those later.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So we get you now. Okay. See that same trick I did there, guys? Okay. Did we hear everybody's inputs? We got any drum machines or loops or things like that? We do? Great. Let me see. I think I put that over here. Go ahead and let me see some level on that. I see it. Get a little level for us. drum stuff too, or is it mostly just pads and stuff? Okay, great. We'll run with that. You want to pass some stuff around? So let's do this so that it's clear what's going on in Soundcheck here. Since I've got all my sounds done, and you guys gave me the time to do this, now I want to make it about you for a minute. So I'm going to say kick drum. You'll play kick if you'll raise your hand. And when you're done and you have enough of it, put your hand down. Okay? Did y'all put deodorant on this morning? Sweet. Good deal. Don't want to offend anybody. Mildred, you okay down front? Great.
Can I just say something too?
Yeah.
He's taking complete authority for this sound check. You guys have to do the same thing. If there's people noodling around when he's asking for one instrument, that's got to stop.
Yes.
You know, one instrument at a time when he's doing a sound check, and then he's doing the monitors, just like he said. Take authority, and then they can rehearse. That should go very quickly if we have cooperation.
Yeah,
If you
sound
talk
check's
to your
not a
music
rehearsal.
director or pastor, whoever's kind of in charge of it, or the band leader, and you're nice to them and say, hey, I'd like to try something different today that I learned at the conference this weekend, explain what you're going to do, and actually own it. You can't be timid. You have to be, hey, guys, and be confident and be nice. They're going to give you the time. I
Yeah.
guarantee it. And because they know if you're doing it and you learn something, hey, let's try it and see what happens, because it could only be better. Yes. Okay. So he said, what do you do with an acoustic that has the preamp built into it? And one Sunday it's all jacked and the other time it's not. What I do, it takes a little bit of time to build this confidence, because they need to hear that you've got their sound in your hands, first of all. And that's why they're doing it, because they want to hear something different. But I would say, hey, Joe, why don't you set your guitar all flat with your gain at say, 75%. That way you got a little bit of room to turn it up. I don't want him to, but if you let him have that ability, that's fine. But if he sets it at 25%, because he wants to have 75% later. So if you give him some parameters, if you set it flat, let me make some adjustments first. Then we know where ground zero is. Right. Feel free after this to kind of maybe do some changes if you want. But then next Sunday, we can start flat again. I can make a change, you can make a change, and we can work together. But if you're always starting from who knows where it was, and especially if a lot of the musicians play elsewhere during the week, if they've played, maybe they play at the Italian restaurant on Tuesday nights and they have a horrible sounding PA, so he's got to jack the high end and get his guitar to sound good, and he forgets to change it on Sunday morning. Sometimes it's not that they're being a dork, So if we set it all flat, everything kind of neutral, let me do something, because honestly, the EQ I have on this board is way more expensive than your awesome preamp. No offense to Mr. Fishman and all, but... and then we've established a ground zero, yeah. And then like a lot of guys will have like the pod pedal boards or the keyboards and stuff. I'll come in on a Saturday and work with my people, especially if they're volunteers, and saying, hey, let's listen to 4 or 5 of your sounds from your keyboard. And don't give me 17 different pianos or 14 different organs. Let's pick an organ you like. Maybe a B3 and a pipe. Maybe a Rhodes piano, and come up with maybe 5 sounds. Because if you're changing them, first of all, I don't know why, but the keyboard manufacturers, almost all of them, none of the patches come out at the same level.
Right.
But you can go in there and edit that and change it. So I'll sit there and listen to it. I don't look at a meter. Okay, yeah, that one's at exactly negative 3.1. Okay, play your next one. Negative 3.1. Okay, turn it up 0.2. No, just listen to it. Like, get a good level on it, and then say, play your next patch. Let me hear it. Play your next one. Let me hear it. Ooh, that one's loud. Can you take it down a little bit? Store it. Does that make sense?
However, one of the coolest features on the new AI is the AB on the fat
Oh,
channel.
yeah.
So if I go from like a string pad to like a harsh Rhodes loud, I can have 2 settings on that input right there for 2 different settings. Or brushes to sticks, or telly to Les Paul. You have 2 settings for each input, each bus.
I'll tell you what I've used it for that's kind of fun. I'll show it to you real quick. Guitar here, will you give me like some big power chords? Keep going. Okay, here's my one sound. Okay, thanks. What I'm doing with that is right on a beat. If you hit it right on the downbeat of the snare, you're not going to hear the little click of things changing, and you do it on the change to the chorus. So maybe the thinner sound is the verse, and when he hits that chorus, what do we want the chorus to do anyway? Get bigger. Right. So when he hits it, I'll try and use that a little bit if I can figure out where you're going with stuff, and I'll hit it right on the chorus, and it'll go, and it fills up the mix more. Or if he wants a ukulele sound on one song and I hate it, but the rest of his sounds are great, then we can just EQ the snot out of the ukulele sound and have his other good sound ready.
Same thing with an acoustic guitar. Sometimes the worshiper is just playing acoustic without the band. So
Perfect.
you want the acoustic to sound full. Now he's playing with the band, so want to thin it out again to blend in with the rest of the band. Two settings right there.
Yeah, your A/B controls your EQ and your dynamics. The biggest thing with an acoustic and a worship leader is he's leading worship, so he's not really thinking a lot about playing the acoustic as perfect as he would if he was just playing. So when he goes from soft picking to hard strumming, how many people just want to shoot him? Most of the time I do. So use your A/B, and if he's going to do a soft pick, you have a setting that's a little more compressed, a little different EQ, and he goes to his strummy strum through the roof. You can hit that as well. So, okay, let's pass these monitors around real quick. So let's go kick. It's very important that we put kick on in the house while we're passing it around in the monitors, because they hear the kick in the subs. They're going to ask for less of it. So put your hands up good and tall so I can see them. Nobody wants kick drum. There we go. Is this what I said? No. Is this what I said? Did I see your hand? Put it up good and yeah, there we go. Thanks, bud. Okay, because that lets me see, because I'm just scanning. So let's see. You're 1, 2, 3. You're mix 3. Kick drum for you. Put your hand up until you got enough, and then put it down when you got it. Okay, he's good. Bass coming to you. Go ahead. Keep going.
No.
Okay. Center, you good? You want some?
I don't want any.
You got enough of it from right behind you, don't
behind
you?
him.
Okay. Drums, did you want
Hands
any?
were actually kind of flaring. I don't know if you saw that.
I can't see drums.
Pretty intense.
Do you want any kick?
No.
No, great. Okay, snare drum. Nobody wants it? Great. I'm pretty sure you probably don't want overheads then either. There's more than enough of that up there. Bass at a bass, what you got? Anybody want bass?
Yes.
Yes.
You're good.
Okay. Bass, you want bass? See, I'm asking him because he's got to play, so I can't yell at him for not turning his hand up.
You could do this.
Yeah, but can you do it on one foot? Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Just play and just give me a nod. That's good. Great. Anybody else? Nope. Great. Moving on. Let's go with center electric.
Huh. That's me.
You go to center, down for you. Everybody's good on that? I kind of roughed in a few more earlier. Bass wants it down. Coming up. Bass down. Play a little for me, center. Good. Okay. Everybody good on that? All right. Second electric. Everybody okay on that? Great. Oh, center wants a little. Nice. Okay. Vocal.
Hey, Johnny, can I just say something
Sure.
about four
Yeah.
monitors, wedges? Make sure they're aimed at your ears. Not your kneecaps or back here.
Check.
Okay. There's a thing called the inverse square law. And you get Johnny's playing 12 feet away from his monitor. He wants more gain. I tell him to march 6 steps toward his monitor. I just increased him by 6 dB. Right? That's a law of physics.
Physics, it's a law.
Physics. Who
Not a
invented
suggestion.
physics? Newton? God, yeah. So when you're violating these things, this is another inverse square law violation. Singing down here, this doesn't work. That's blasphemy, that's sin. You're breaking God's laws. And you're going to go to hell if you keep doing that.
And,
At least that's what I think.
Yeah, so
and Doug,
If I got to judge,
and Doug, on monitors, you know, these are great monitors because they've got a nice angle built into them. They're kind of at a natural angle. So a lot of monitor cabinets out there that don't have this nice angle. So, you know, one of the things you can do is you can prop them up. And if you've gone to, you know, electronic verses and words, and you've got that big old pile of hymnals,
Yeah.
those work really well
Great
for
shims.
propping up shims. They call them shimnals now.
yeah. You put that monitor on a firm foundation,
That's
you're
right.
better off.
And you're recycling those old books that you don't use anymore.
Okay, we're ready for you, John.
Okay. So you guys want to try a song? Let's see where we're at. Great.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm going to do at this moment, guys, I know it's gonna freak you out, all you sound guys. Look at this. I'm turning it off. Why'd I do this? Because they have enough in their monitors to hear, and I'm going to start fading in so I can see how low I can run it to cover up stage volume. Okay?
Okay.
So go ahead. And if you don't hear it right away, guys, I'll get the faded in because some of that sound was off the house, obviously.
All my thoughts blinded by the lights on the side of the interstate, and one crossed into the next frame or over to you, and the silence never broke when I was wondering if it would make or break it if we would have spoken, but it was late as you were bored. I'd fallen asleep. I was having a dream about the woods and the river, and you were a silent speak. All I got was a whisper, and they came after us. The flashlights run, and they would shine like beacons, but we never made up. The silent speak, we're the silent speaker. Never found from who we were running, but we knew that we had to. And all my thoughts on what she could have done that would make them so mad at you, and we never stopped believing if we could make it to the water, we'd be safe from the constant drone of our breathing. The only sound booming loud. I'd fallen asleep. I was having a dream about the woods and the river, and you were a silent speak. You were teaching me how, and all I got was a whisper. And they came after us with the flashlights run, and they would shine like beacons, but we never made up. At the silent speak, we're the silent speaker.
Yeah? Monitors okay? What do you need? You want a little more in yourself?
That was great. That was great. Give me a hand. They were great. That was awesome. How many of you guys are using Studio One out here? And are you using it? Keep your hands up if you're using it for production. How many are using Studio One live? Not as many. Did you know you could use Studio One live? Okay. Why? Why would you do that? We're going to show you right now why you want to use it. Can we? Because we're running out of time.
Sure.
This guitar player has not been playing through this amp. He's been playing through a plug-in on Studio One live.
In fact, the amplifier power is turned off completely.
Right.
Light's not even on.
So we had this situation happen in our worship service a few months ago where the Vox AC30 blew a tube. So instead of using capture, I loaded Studio One up and just dragged Ampire over to his channel. Plugged his guitar into the direct box. He says, Les Paul's going to sound bad through a direct box, man. I said, yeah, wait. Then I hit return, And then I just started going through presets until he's about the third one. He was like, he needed a drool cup. He was going, what is that thing? I said, just some software that came with the mixer. And you guys have access to a whole arsenal of effects that run natively on Studio Live.
Let's show them the difference real quick. I think it's
Yeah.
real simple because our center guitar player is playing through the emulated guitar amp in Studio One, and our stage left or to your right guitar player is playing through his amp that's mic'd, right?
Right.
So what I want you to notice is two things. One of them, they both sound like guitars. Stage right guitar player, we're hearing two sources because we're hearing his amp and the PA, right? So what we're going to do is just, you play like a little jonga, 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 and then you play a little bit, and notice the difference in tone, not that the instrument's doing, but what you're perceiving from the depth of hearing two sound sources and which one's clearer. Yeah, it's something simpler. Stage right, can you take the reverb off? Do you have a reverb pedal on? That's a little bit misleading out here. Which guitar sounds closer to you guys? Center. Does it almost sound like stage right is a little further away and a little mushy? Yep. It's because there's two sources. Watch, if I turn off and you just hear his amp on the stage, go ahead and play again. Okay, center. It's much more similar, isn't it? The reason is because your ear, even though it's only, maybe 10 feet difference from the PA, how far it's coming to that, your brain perceives it as two sources arriving not at the same time. And this is the really cool thing, in my opinion, about your brain, besides your ears and the 2K resonance and yada yada, is you can localize things. Yep. And your brain hears something that is articulate and closer to you as more intelligent, and more intelligible. Sorry, not intelligent. You're not dumb and he's smart. That doesn't have anything to do with it. That was not meant to be a, yes, you are much smarter because your guitar sounds better.
And that's just one thing you can do with the plugins. For instance, my pastor's got this bad lavalier. He hasn't gone to the headboard yet. That's why I lost all my hair. It's like, anybody doesn't know, the lavalier mic was invented by Satan, okay, to distort the word of God. Anyway, the compressors and limiters in the board are great. But guess what I have in my Studio One Professional? I have multi-band dynamics.
Even better ones.
I plug in. How about a nice, beautiful reverb that I can actually change the dimensions of the reverb with open air to the size of my church? And now the reverb sounds more natural. I'm not in a Westminster Abbey. I'm in this little church. So I wanted a reverb that's appropriate, open air on the lead vocal. I mean, you can't have every channel with a plug-in unless you got a great, powerful computer. But you have this in the box, and most Studio One owners or Studio Live owners that I've met haven't even opened artists. We don't produce. Yeah. Yep. Sure. Yeah, he could fix that with delay, that's for sure. Yeah. Okay, Johnny, sorry.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. I think the interesting part though is for you guys, you're probably more comfortable because you're hearing your guitar amp. Yes? Are you feeling a little naked by not having a guitar amp?
Up here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely used to having the real amp behind me and stuff.
Sure.
Not just out of the monitor.
So while we as front of house guys love this, the musicians don't. So they're going to be very resistant to it at the beginning, much like electronic drummers don't like, or real drummers don't like electronic drums. It's a new thing. But if I can have you guys come out here, which would be too hard right now,
right.
But if you come out and listen to what we were just doing, if you work with them to show them, listen, what I just did, do the same setup with them, not even necessarily the plug-in, just the amped mic versus out. You know what we could do is we could take your amp and turn it around.
Right.
Which we're hearing the definition of it coming off the amp, but if we turn it around and fire it into a mattress or a big piece of foam, it's going to sound more like this. And so it's not going to sound like it's right in our face. So it's going to automatically sound like it's an echo far away. Your brain cancels that out, and it's less important to you. Now, it might still be too loud. It may still be, kind of shaking the walls up there, but it's not going to affect me from getting it articulately in the mix. Because my goal is to make sure when he's playing a that it doesn't sound like it's far away. It should sound like it's with me. Okay? So the best way to get them to embrace this technology is work with them. Don't demand it. Don't tell them this is what we have to do. You're too loud. Well, instantly you're going to go, sorry, I have to be comfortable to play. And the worst thing we can do, especially to the worship leader, I love you, band, but you're less important to me than he is right now, because he has to be in touch with what's happening in the room and the music and what's happening, and telling you guys we're going to a 2, we're going to change, and we're stopping. His job is to connect us up, right? So if he can't do that and he is not comfortable, we've not done our job. So my first and foremost job as a sound guy is to make the worship leader comfortable. So if there's tension between us, go get some Starbucks on Saturday afternoon. Work that stuff out before you walk in on Sunday, because it's not going to happen. If he's always looking at me going, is he going to turn the mic on? I missed it 4 times last week. How easy is it going to be for him to get into the throne room at that point? Pretty impossible, because that's what he's going to be thinking about. When I walk up to this mic, is it going to work? So, okay, that's for free.
How do you get consistency across mixes, different worship leaders, different sound guys? Recording, listening to them together? How do you, some guys have no bottom end in the mix, some guys have too much. I mean,
Sure.
How do you get something that's kind of consistent week to week for the congregation to say, wow, it sounds kind of the same as last week?
Oh, you're asking me? I thought
Yeah,
you were
I'm
leading
asking
into,
you.
I thought you were leading into a statement.
No, I'm asking you, Mr. Sound Guy, because you've been a TD at Lincoln Brewster's Church and other places. And
Yeah, one of the things I do is I ask the worship team, if I'm allowed to ask them, but let's have some consistency in players for a few weeks. Because I know a lot of churches are volunteers, but instead of doing a new worship band every week, let's put people on for a month. And personally, when we've tried that at places, the team appreciates it more, because as a band, you get to maybe Sunday number 1's not so great. Sunday 2, hey, we're vibing. We did 3 of the same songs we did last week. Because you guys, like we said at the top of the seminar, some of you guys are running sound an hour a week. So are some of the musicians, because they're doctors, lawyers, mechanics,
you think you're
whatever.
going to sound like Chris Tomlin an hour a week.
Yeah.
I-
I mean, and you got a woodshed at home. Obviously, musicians, you can do that. So you can grab the charts for the weekend and kind of get familiar with what's going on. Drummers often will take the tracks and listen to them and just drum on their steering wheel during the week. As a sound guy, I don't get that. I pretty much get that rehearsal. So real quick, Doug mentioned it earlier. There's 3 parts to Sunday morning in my mind that people usually miss. There's line check, sound check, and then, and only then, rehearsal.
Right.
How many of you just go straight to rehearsal but call it sound check?
Come on, be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to be brutally honest with you. That is a giant fail and a disservice to the community of God. Because if you guys come in and just start playing, you're asking me to tune the guitar while you're playing it. I mean, go ahead and hit the, if you hit a G chord and it's out of tune, can you reach over and tune it while he's playing it? Maybe, right?
try to.
Yeah, but I mean, holy cow, you would never do that, right? That's like crazy. And would anybody think? I've never seen the worship leader tuning, or the stage right tuning worship leader while he's talking and going, let me help you fix this. No, you stop. You hit your tuner pedal, you try to tell a nice little joke as you're not even paying attention to what you're saying to us, but you're jokey joke while you're paying attention to tuning. If that happens and you're out of tune in the middle of the service, you have to do that, because if he starts playing chords out of tune, he's going to sing out of tune, the band's going to be out of tune, and guess what? Nobody's going to engage. So you guys got that figured out.
That's why we need real-time Melodyne, man.
Yeah.
We need that.
And then real-time mixing, and I would like it to sound like this, please.
Sister Lucy
Siri.
singing in tune. Hallelujah.
Siri, can you make them sound like Chris Tomlin?
Siri.
I'm sorry, I can't do that. Oh.
The other thing as a sound guy you can do, the cool thing with the whole PreSonus and the capture program, is record the band playing.
Yep.
And then you can go back, and by using the digital inputs on the console, you can go back and you can experiment with things. because you're now taking the recording and you're bringing it back through the console, and all the processing in the console comes into play. A band I work with, we did that for every spring we get together, we bring out the summer PA system, and we set it all up, and we tweak it all and make sure all the cables are working, all that kind of stuff, where they do the summer season. And the first year we had the Studio Live consoles, I had tracked them at one of their shows. And I came back and I played the tracks back, and the whole band could go out in front of the PA and listen for the first time ever. And they were amazed at how they sounded. They said, well, I need to tweak this a little bit on what I'm doing, and that way they could actually hear what they sounded like. Because these guys up here on stage when they're playing don't really hear what they sound like in the house until they actually, and it's really hard unless you got like a 100-foot guitar cord, then it makes the sound of the guitar go crummy because of the capacitance and the wire and all that. So now the guitar players and the guys in the band and the drummer can actually walk out and hear what the band sounds like. So use that capture program. It comes free, and I track everything we do. I own a sound company. I track everything that we do in capture, and I can go back and do virtual experimentation on how I want to tweak the sound and all that kind of stuff. And it gives you a chance to practice during the week. You don't have to have the band there.
So many applications for capture. We record every rehearsal, and the whole team, tech team and worship team, listen to it together. And you have I hate to pick on guitar players again, but the guitar player is always playing loud. I get tired of being a judge and jury, telling them to turn down. So I just record it. Even if it's a simple 2-track recording of the room with room mics. And I say, what do you hear? Guitar. It's like a basketball coach with a videotape of his team. Yeah. Johnny, you shot the ball the whole first half. You're a point guard. I didn't shoot the ball. Hit the tape. Shut up. Pass it. Okay? So the same thing with your team. You can listen to together and make improvements. Now you have a baseline, a benchmark from how to get better each week. Some worship leaders will be well served by arranging the band. Not just throwing a chart in front of the band, but actually having parts that you have to play. Because John is a sound man. If he's got a team up here that's playing all the time, every part, not listening to each other, that's impossible to mix. Whereas other bands, he's just kind of like, wow, they're mixing themselves up there. I was a second chair trumpet player in high school, not first chair. 32 bars of rest. Here comes my part. Dan! Right? So worship leaders have to write in 3 guitar players. Nobody's capoed up. Everybody's playing the same position. Don't play here. You play this. You. Ka-ching. 3 different things. Listen.
If you have 3 guitar players playing the same jong, I call that pick one mixing. And 2 of you could go home. Because it's really, really difficult to get that many things that are the exact same thing in there. But it's really not hard. You mentioned the capo, man. When I play a little guitar, not like you. But when I understood what the capo did, man, I can write 17 different songs now and play the exact same chord structure. So, I mean, I know 4 chords, but if I capo at 4, it sounds like a totally different song than if I capo at 8. Yep. So really simply, if your team isn't that great, let's just say you've got a guitar player who's just kind of there, and he can play, but he's a rhythm. Put a capo on 4, and you work out the chords that he needs to play for him, and he can play a high part that's the same rhythm as you, because maybe he's just not good at rhythm, but if he hears your rhythm, he can stay with the band. There's all kinds of tricks like that.
We're running out of time, but we want to hang out after this a little bit and answer your questions one-on-one. I'll stick around even out there if we have to, but I want to give away some prizes. And
See, the good thing about coming to the church thing on Sunday morning is we're giving away prizes.
Yeah.
Prizes.
Grace.
The real prizes.
Grace, amazing grace. So the first prize I want to give to, is there anybody here with 2 first names? Okay? Yeah, like if your name is like Bruce Lee, something like that.
John George.
Okay. Okay, if the guys got your hands up, who's the oldest? Okay. How old are you? 67. He win? Okay. And who's the youngest of who raised their hands? You? All right, you 2 come up and pick 2 prizes. You and you. Who came the farthest distance? Where? Come on down now.
Nice.
We're not even going to try that one.
He was
Right,
so
man.
confident, like he knew.
I thought I'd win. I'm from New Jersey, man, but
He's won every seminar this weekend when people ask
he just
that,
goes
right?
to all the seminars and wins prizes. Yeah, pick whatever you want, whatever left. Right. And did we have a woman sound person in here? You, come on up. I love women in sound, don't you, John?
You know,
We
you
need
know what I
more
love
of 'em.
about women in sound?
What's
is,
that?
A, they're more fun to talk to, but no. No, seriously, here's the thing, guys. We guys like buttons and knobs and lights and nerdy stuff. Women just like it to sound good. I have taught many worship teams, and honestly, most of the time, if I'll go to a service and they're saying, hey, our worship team is going to be there, I really want you to work with our sound people. The word people to me means plural. But there's one guy that shows up for this. And the church has spent money to bring me in to teach, and there's one guy. And he has, honestly, in 14.2 seconds, I've realized he has 10 ears. He does not even hear, hi, low. He doesn't even hear that. Nope, doesn't hear it. So you know what I did at one church? His wife was complaining with him. Yeah, you need to learn this, and you need to learn that. You need to, yeah, see, you don't. I'm like, she hears it. He knows how to do it. So I actually took him to lunch that day after the first session, and I talked to her. And I said, what you need to do is you need to encourage him what to do.
Right.
And I said, and he's like, I know what to do, I just don't hear it. And I got them talking about it, and 2 years later, I go back, and they are at the soundboard giggling about the sound. It was awesome. It really was. I mean, I don't know if I saved their marriage or was in trouble. I felt like that. But no, it was amazing because she hears it, but there was a disconnect between it. He didn't hear it, but he knew how to do it because he had studied it. He knew the buttons and stuff. So she goes, hey, the electric is a little funny sounding. She doesn't know what to do to it. He goes, funny sounding. Okay, maybe let's try. And she's like, yeah. So just because you're the sound guy doesn't mean you are the guy that has to hear it all.
Right.
Work in teams. I've had many times. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I've had the opportunity to do it for some very important people, if you will. I still love to have young and older sound guys sit with me, and it's like, hey, man, what'd you think of my snare sound this morning? That's what you're going for. Oh, really?
Wow.
That's always a good one. You know?
I've never quite heard a snare sound like that.
Yeah.
It can be encouraging.
It could be encouraging or it could be discouraging.
One thing I
Anyway.
think PreSonus has to do on the next series of mixers, though, is add a talent knob. Can you give me more talent? Yeah, right here.
Yep.
There you go. It'd fix everything. All right, well, thank you guys. Really
Yeah, thanks.
appreciate it. Thank you, Steve.